I do not claim to be an artist, but I do play one on TV. All right, now, I'm going to draw you a picture. Okay, it is not a mushroom or a nuclear bomb. It is a tree.
What?
It? I said it's a tree.
That doesn't look like a tree. And this looks like a dehydrated.
Well, okay. All right. Now, this particular tree is a 24-inch diameter tree. Imagine in your mind, 24-inch diameter tree. Your car hits it. Who wins? The tree does, because the tree has a lot of power. Yes. Yeah?
Yeah.
I almost crashed my car into a tree.
You know the willow tree in front of the lake in front of the chapter at the yeah, come to one side.
Yeah, well, kind of. I don't go over there much.
That pond.
Yeah?
That's the tree I hit.
I almost hit two trees one time. I went right between. I was like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe that happened. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so the point of the story is the tree has power. Now, what's under the ground? Ah, yes, the roots. Power on top, roots on the bottom. The reason I'm bringing this up, folks, is you need to understand what fractional exponents are. Fractional exponents. And you need to understand the different parts of that fractional exponent. For instance, the power is in the numerator. The index of the root is in the denominator. Power on top, root on the bottom. What does that mean? We're dealing with a cube root. A cube root of what? X to the what power? These two things are exactly the same. You need to understand that fractional exponent, and you're going to need to know how to switch back and forth between those. And I didn't do a very good job of putting this particular worksheet in order, and I'll probably have to reorder it for my own sanity's sake. So I'm sure some of you will not enjoy some of this. Okay, so 625 to the 1/4 power. What root are we dealing with? Square root, cube root, fourth root, fifth root, sixth root, seventh root, eighth. What root are we dealing with? It is the fourth root of 625 to what power? To the first. And you know that raising something to the first power doesn't change it, right? So I need the fourth root of 625. Use your machine if you don't know it off the top of your head. Use your machine.
You help me. Okay, we need nicknames. Oh my god. I need help.
Okay. Type of 4. So on this side here, you'll see right here, there's a square root above that button. Above this caret is an x root. So I'm going to use that second function above that. And you see how it says that right there? Now, it's going to put the 4 in the place of the x. So now that's a fourth root of 625. The answer is right there. What? Okay, so I'm not too familiar with these, but I do see the x root above your caret button as well. So you'll type a 4, you'll hit the x root, and then you'll type your 625. So it works very similar to the way hers does. Get it? Okay, good. We're on 7-3. And what'd you get for the final answer on this? 5? Good answer. I will
try to briefly explain my picture of a tree over there, Mr. Leonard?
So he doesn't think it's a bomb. It's not a bomb. It's not a mushroom. Okay. It's a tree. Okay. And I put 24 on there because I was trying to describe it at 24 in space. It's a tree. No, the tree has a lot of power. Underneath the ground of that tree. What I've been trying to indicate here, this is just a way to try to remember the fractional exponent has the power on the top and the roots on the bottom. So when we go from here to here, then we're dealing with the cube root. So that's, the tree is just a guide, it's just an illustration of how to help people remember power here, root here. So we were using that for this. So we have the first root of 625 to the first power. Well, the power.
But like ours, that
That's how we got that.
excellent.
So far, make sense?
Yesterday I was there.
Okay. Skip ahead to question 4. We're going to do very similar problems as we go through this, which does cause me to skip problems here and there, and then we'll start coming back to the more difficult things. We need to build this up. What root are we dealing with? It is a cube root. It's the cube root of 216 to the first power. And your answer is 6. Nice job. That's okay. Just double check on there to make sure you do the same thing. Before you get it. Okay. Okay. Jump to question 6. Instructions say write the expression shown below in radical form. Write the expression shown below. So that's all I'm asking you to do is write it in radical form. Show it to me to make sure it's right. Decide what the 1 and the 7 mean and write it in radical form. So it's going to be some sort of radical. We have to decide. Yes, that's the right symbol. Now, what root are we talking about? Is it a square root, a cube root, a fourth root, a fifth root? Well, look here. See that exponent? It's got the power on the top and the root on the bottom. So just like we did this, we took that 4 from that denominator and we made that the index on the root. So I need you to do the same type of thing here. No, I wouldn't erase that. That was good. That was good. It's just that you have to put the correct number right there and what goes on the inside. So now that T is going to be on the inside. What root are we taking? Exactly. So that's the little index that's going to be on the outside. Good. Okay, first of all, nice answer. Hopefully it's the same. Pretty conservative.
You can guess what
The Democrats want to go to office in this.
Yeah.
But the guy they killed was a terrorist that was killed 200 plus Americans.
Which I'm pretty sure other presidents, previous Democratic ones have done things that could cause
Like the president before this one?
Yeah. Benghazi comes to mind.
Okay, so a lot of good answers out there. A lot of you realized it was the 7th root of t. Now, question. Is there anything wrong if a student put the 1 right there? No, there's nothing wrong with that. Many of you did not do that, but yet I still told you you were correct because if it's not there, it's assumed to be a 1. Now, what if it was a 4? What if it was t to the 4/7? Then I would expect that you would have that exponent in there. Otherwise, you'd be wrong. Question 7, go. Write it in its radical form. Write it in its radical form. Yep. Yes. Yes. Perfect. See? Just as simple as that. See? Good answer. Good answer.
So this is long.
Exactly what we need. Did you do it?
Yeah, well, I got it. Get some of them.
Good.
Oh, that's
Yeah, that- Root is on the bottom. Oh, you did? Yeah, good. Okay, many good answers. Root on the bottom, power on the top. That would be all you would need for this question. Now I'm going to ask you another question. Is there a perfect 7th trapped inside that radical? If the question said simplify, which I don't believe this one does, so my question is there a perfect 7th trapped inside there that I could bring out? No. You are correct. Here's this fraction 6/7. Listen. Listen. 6/7. Is that bigger than 1 or smaller than 1? Smaller than 1. That is another proof to you that there's no way that could be simplified. When that fraction is smaller than 1. Now, a couple of you switched the 7 and the 6. Okay, you put the 6 out here and the 7 there. That would be the exponent 7/6. That could be simplified because 7/6 is bigger than 1. Anyway, just thought I'd ask. All right. Let's go to question 9. Question 9. What's another word for rational numbers? Fractional. If you can write a number as a fraction, then it is a rational number. So they're asking me to rewrite this expression, and I better have a fractional exponent when I'm done. Rewrite that so it has a fractional exponent. Answer. Root over power. Root over power, power over root. What does the tree tell me? Power over root.
Is this wrong?
So, what's the root on this?
The 7.
Are we taking a 7th root, or are we taking a cube root? Cube roots. So we actually need to reverse those. Because the 7 is the power. That's the power's on the top, and the root's on the bottom. Yes. I don't know what was wrong. Something like terrorism, or you got something he's trying to earn, or get, but he's definitely doing a lot better.
I mean, he helped with it.
I know.
Do you understand what's going on? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. But I'm happy.
I'm broke already. So I gotta.
Hey, a lot of good answers. X to the 7/3. Quick question. This question doesn't ask this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If I asked you to simplify this radical, let's do that right now. Simplify that radical. Now, I know that's not a part of this question. The actual answer to that question is x to the 7/3, just like many of you have written down. But just for quick practice, 3 goes into 7 how many times? Doesn't it go in twice? With how much left over? Okay, so that is the simplified version of that. That's what we did on our last test. Okay, move to 14. We're going to do this question in 2 steps. And I'm going to take you back and remind you of what we taught you in Algebra 1. So we have the exponent 2/3. We're going to split that into 2 different steps. The first step is going to be the 1/3 power. And the second step is going to be the second power. Now, while you're copying that down, I'll wait and then I'll explain. Or ask you another question. Yes, it's question 14. What did we teach you in Algebra 1 about these 2 exponents, 1/3 and 2? It's called the power of a power. Did we add, multiply, divide, or subtract those? We multiplied them together. Power of a power. So, all I did was I took that 2/3 and split it into 2 things. Here inside, you can see that I have the root first, which is which root? Square root, cube root, fourth root, fifth root? It's a cube root, right? Then I'm going to take it to the second power. Now, there are certain numbers that would go against what I'm about to ask you, but in general, you will understand what I'm talking about. If you take a number and take its cube root, do you make it smaller or do you make it bigger? Take a number, take its cube root, do you make it smaller or bigger? You make it smaller, right? Then when you raise it to the second power, do you make it smaller or do you make it bigger? You make it bigger. The idea here is to do 2 steps that will help us understand this by making the number smaller and making it bigger. Okay? Dealing with reducing it down first will help you in this process. Okay? So, we are dealing with the cube root of 729. What is the cube root of 729? Cube root 729? It is 9, correct? So we simplified the part inside, right? We did the root first, and we did the power second. And what's your final answer? 81, right? 9 squared is 80. Root first, power second. You do question 15. Root first, power second. I were you, I'd follow that example. Be careful with parentheses. We do have a negative here, which might cause some of you problems if you don't use parentheses correctly. How's your day going? Oh. First. I like first. Throughout the week. Seventh period, I'm just tired, so I don't like end of the day. I don't like seventh period playing. So.
I like it just.
Oh, gotcha. I like on the other end when they have meetings in the morning. I don't have to like fly out of there and start teaching class. I hate that feeling. But they don't care.
I just want to see if I did this right. Because
So what is the cube root of negative 125? That is negative 5. Now, if you don't use parentheses around negative 5 before you square it, you will get it wrong. And I'm not talking, folks, I have seen some of you write these things down and say, well, Mr. Stailey, I am using parentheses. Well, there's a problem. Okay? You're telling the calculator to square 5 and then multiply by negative 1. And you will always get a negative number when you do that. But that's not what's going on here. When you take negative 5 times itself, what do you get? Positive 25. Right? We get a positive 25. Not that. Be careful with those negatives. Okay, jump down to 18. Jump down to 18. Show me your steps. Should be 2 steps in your notes. I'm saying that there could be worse. Appreciate it. Okay. Negative 64, we got the cube root of that squared, okay? What was the cube root? The cube root of negative 64, that's what? Negative 4, and then we're squaring that, so we get 16. Okay. Jump up to question 16. There's something new going on with question 16. There's a negative in the exponent. Now, I need to remind you, or maybe ask you, what you remember from Algebra 1. When we take a number and raise it to the negative first power, what happens? Anybody remember that? What happens? Does it make it smaller? Well, in this case it does. Depends on what you're starting with. Do you guys remember? No? Okay. If you don't remember, take the calculator and type 2 to the negative first. 2 to the negative first. Find out what you get. Some of you actually have an x to the negative first button on your calculator. Some of you have a button that says 1 over x. Yes, you do. Because we teach it in Algebra 1. And what'd you get? Okay, what fraction do you get? 1/2. Now, for those of you who do not know or did not realize, the number that we started off with was 2 over 1. And we raised it to the negative first power, and we ended up with 1 over 2. Can you tell me what happened? We got the reciprocal, the flip, right? If I asked you for the reciprocal of, or if I asked you for 2/5 to the negative first, what would you tell me? The answer is you don't need a calculator. What do you get? What fraction? 5 over 2. Thank you very much. Okay, that's the concept. We're talking a reciprocal. And sometimes in algebra we talk about, do you remember something like this where they said, in order to change the exponent to a positive, we would take that and move it to the bottom or move it to the top? Do you remember that kind of thing where we would physically move it and the exponent would change from positive to negative or negative to positive? Okay, we're going to do this one in 2 steps. And yes, we are going to start with the root. But you'll notice that I'm splitting that negative 1/4 exponent up into 2 parts. First a root, and then the flip. Root first, flip second. Every time I've been doing this, I've always started with the root, no matter what happens next. Whether we had a root and a power, or a root and a flip. So, what's the 4th root of 256? 4? Can I get a witness on that? All right. So write down your answer for that one. You don't need to type on a calculator unless you absolutely don't know what it is. But just think about it. What do you get when you flip that over? Give me a fraction, please. What do you get when you flip that over? So now we have 4 to the first, and then we're raising that to the negative 1 power. That's going to take that 4 over 1 and flip it upside down. Yes, exactly. Yes, good answer. And we all should have gotten what? 1 over 4. It flips over. Everybody okay with that so far?
Yes.
I got one more question to go here for today. Way back to question 2. Taking me back. Didn't you hear me at the beginning where I said I probably need to go back and reorder this because it's not in the right order?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do. Because I like to stick with the same type to practice until we...
I mean, I don't mind.
No, it's a little bit too much even for me, you know. Okay, now, this one has 3 parts to it. It has a root. It has a power. And it has a flip. If you ever meet a negative fractional exponent in a dark alley, this is the self-defense move you're going to do. Root power flip. It works every time. Okay? In fact, 3rd period I started chanting a little bit. Root power flip. And somebody was like, that sounds like a song. And I was like, we will rock you. Yes, I need to change the words to the song. Root power flip.
What part of this song?
You know the beginning, you know, where they're like doing the, you know, the stomping, you know, stomp,
That's not
stomp.
any words though.
That's okay. I'm putting words in, man. I'm making it my own. And we're going to have to do it. Okay. Start with the inside. What is the cube root? Cube root of 729. That is 9. I'm telling you, if you do this a piece at a time, it's not too bad. 9 to the 5th power. You're going to need a machine for that. Because nobody knows 9 to the 5th off the top of their head very easily. 59,049. And for our last maneuver, raising it to the negative first gives us 1 over 59,049. That is pretty small. But let me ask you this question. Is it positive or negative? It is positive, correct? Now, don't put anything away. It's my time. Up there on screen, I realize it's a multiple choice question. There are 2 answers that I will accept. I need you right now to choose both of the correct answers. I'm going to look and see what you choose. Obviously, everybody's choosing B because that matches the one we just found. I need to see what you get for the other one. Yes, sir. Look to see if you can find the other answer. Nice job. The other answer that I will accept besides the one we just found. There are 2 answers that I will accept. 2 answers besides these, one of them, that's true. If I said yes to your answer, then yes, you can put it away. Okay. Which one of these involves a cube root? A 5th power, and it flips it over. D. Cube root, 5th power, and it flips it over. I would accept this answer or this answer on the test. Both are correct. That's enough for today. Nice job.
Stop reading water.